So I always chuckle about things like, for example, I ran for president. I finished in third place in the delegate count. I made it all the way to Florida. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but that was God's plan for our country and for my life. And there are a lot of things I've been able to do over the last 4 years I wouldn't have been able to do if I had won that race or even been the nominee. And they call me for a long time. They wrote about Marco Rubio, failed presidential candidate. Kamala Harris didn't even make it out of California. She didn't even make it to December.
Polled at zero.
Yeah, Cory Booker didn't even make it to December. They didn't even make it to the first state, and they're called former presidential candidates. So I'm a failed one. They're a former one. I don't care, but it's an example of that sort of double standard, and it exists. And I think there comes a point where you kind of realize, who cares?
I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report with my first interview from the free state of Florida. And we got the right guy for it, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to have you here. And just a disclaimer at the outset, this is like real world right here. I'm in my backyard. My dog is right here. So if you hear a little barking, that's why I'm using these. But we're not trying to stage anything here. It's all real, man. So I apologize ahead if he barks.
You're going full Florida, man. So first off, as you know, I just moved here from the crazy state of California. I've been here for a couple weeks, just moved into the house. I'm in my makeshift studio now. You were nice enough to do a little promo video for me, welcoming me here. So let's just start with the state of Florida first. I mean, what is it about Florida that sort of allowed Florida to do it right over these last 2 years? Like, I don't think it's just the political part, although that's a part of it. What is it about just sort of the Florida man, the Florida woman that did something right here?
That's a great question. I do think it starts with political leadership. And maybe the truth is that the people produce that political leadership. They reward a certain kind of leadership and don't reward others. But I think the key thing about Florida to understand is that everyone's from somewhere else for the most part. And that means another part of the country like you. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of people in Florida that have done what you've done. And that is you came here because you didn't like what life was like under the leadership of people in some other state. And so when people come to a place to get away from that kind of stuff, they came for a reason. So I think that's a big part of it. And it's not just from other states. We also have people that come from other countries. So here in South Florida, as I'm sure you've already experienced, we have a lot of people that obviously came from Cuba or their parents did, and then Venezuela and then Nicaragua. And so any time that there is, or for that matter, anytime there's any sort of a left-wing disruption in Latin America. So, for example, Peru elected a president who was far left and even anti-American. And suddenly you see the real estate purchases from Peruvians skyrocket. People come here to get away from that stuff. They come here from other countries. They come here from other states. And I think that's a big, big part of what makes Florida what it is. And it's something we really need to protect, and it's a dynamic state. In many ways, it's sort of a 21st century frontier state in that way.
Well, listen, man, I am here to protect it. As I keep telling people, I'm here to keep Florida. I have noticed, you mentioned the international part of this. I mean, one thing I've definitely noticed in a couple of weeks here, especially in the Miami area, I mean, everyone brings their own driving customs here. There is a certain set of ways that you drive in Florida that I have not seen in California before.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the game about, can I beat the red light, or is it, it's all like a 10-second rule on the red light. Like the light is red, but does it really mean red, or do I get something like you drop something on the floor, you get a, what is it, 2-second rule, whatever. Same thing with that. Everybody's trying to figure out how to use a back street to cut through traffic. There's a little bit of that, and it's part of the flair of the place. I'm not encouraging people to do it, but it's part of the sort of the character of it. I think that's true. Probably more in South Florida than in other parts of the state, but it is, it's different.
No, I've definitely become a bit of a Venezuelan or Cuban driver already in a couple of weeks here. But in these last 2 years that Florida continued to flourish while so many states collapsed, and as you said, there are quite literally hundreds of thousands of people moving in this direction right now. What do you do to stop people who made the mistakes in the blue states from repeating those mistakes here? I'm not going to repeat those mistakes, but, obviously some people will.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's self-selected. I mean, I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but frankly, the bottom line is this. If you live in California and you watch MSNBC habitually and you spend all day on Twitter, You think that in Florida we have bodies all over the streets and we have, people are just dying left and right, and Governor DeSantis is the leader of a death cult. So you're not going to move to Florida if that's what you think, unless your job makes you or something. So by and large, people that are moving here are people that don't believe that stuff when they come. Now, that doesn't mean that's true for everybody. And look, this is a state with diverse opinions. But look, this has always been a state that's had liberals. This has always been a state that's had people that are left of center on their political views. But I don't think that's the dividing line anymore. I mean, I think you can be a liberal and not be crazy. I think what we're talking about now is things that go well beyond just traditional, I want higher taxes and more government. This is the complete, total abandonment of common sense, of balance, of a reason, and almost hysteria on its approach to different issues. And I do think we've avoided a lot of that happening here. That doesn't mean it's not present at all. But I don't see a lot of that happening. That doesn't mean, that there aren't people that hold those views or they're talking those ways. But I think what's really important is to show the results, right? At the end of the day, there's a reason why Ocasio-Cortez and all these other members of Congress come down here to vacation and party on New Year's Eve. And it's because, they may be in favor of the rules, or they at least publicly in favor of the rules in their home state. But when it comes time to actually enjoy life, they're coming here. They're not going to some of these other places. And so I think reminding people that and comparing, us to these other states and what they're going through is one of the most important things we can continue to do to convince people and win this battle.
Do you ever envy the fact that the Democrats can get away with virtually anything, like AOC can be partying down here at clubs, maskless and the whole thing, while she's locking down her own people, when clearly if you were to do anything that the media could figure out in some slight way was hypocritical, or when, say, Senator Cruz went on a vacation that was long planned for a couple of days, they go bananas. But Democrats can pretty much do anything. Do you ever get a little jealous of that?
That's a great question. And let me tell you what happens. And I can talk to you about my evolution on all of this. I think when you first kind of get into politics, I got elected 10 years ago and I get there and I'm new to the place and all that. And so whether it's the people around you or just your own instincts, you sort of think, all right, guys, yes, they're left of center and they're liberal, but at some point there's some fairness in them, right? And so I think you waste a lot of time thinking you're going to impress people from in the legacy media. And I think that's worse than it's ever been in terms of their bias and so forth. And I think maybe one of the things that Donald Trump revealed is you're never going to impress these people. I mean, they're never going to treat you the same as they do the other side. I think once you abandon that and once you accept that that's a fact, and then the next step is realizing, by the way, a lot of people notice. Like there's a lot of people out there that notice this double standard. And so I always chuckle about things like, for example, I ran for president. I finished in third place in the delegate count. I made it all the way to Florida. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but that was God's plan for our country and for my life. And there are a lot of things I've been able to do over the last 4 years I wouldn't have been able to do if I had won that race or even been the nominee. And they call me for a long time. They wrote about Marco Rubio, failed presidential candidate. Kamala Harris didn't even make it out of California. She didn't even make it to December.
Polled at zero.
Yeah, Cory Booker didn't even make it to December. They didn't even make it to the first state, and they're called former presidential candidates. So I'm a failed one. They're a former one. I don't care, but it's an example of that sort of double standard, and it exists. And I think there comes a point where you kind of realize, who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter. People see it, and frankly, people don't believe it anymore. We're just not living in an era now. There are more people that will watch this podcast than will read what the local newspaper writes about me on any given day. And once you sort of realize that, it makes life a lot easier,
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.